Great. Nick, should gay people be allowed to adopt babies?
No, totally not. Absolutely not. And, you know, probably it stems from a disagreement. I'm sure everybody on the panel thinks that homosexuality is fine. I think it's wrong. I think it's a perversion. And I think it's sort of like the question asking, should you let alcoholics adopt kids, or should you let drug users adopt kids, or something like this? You know, and let's just be very clear about what we're talking about. You know, the way that homosexuals are portrayed in the media and like Modern Family and stuff is like, oh, you know, they're just like us. They just kind of like, you know, they have a different preference. Some people like hamburgers, some people like pizza. And so it is. But let's just be very clear. It's like 3% of the population that identifies as exclusively same-sex attracted. It's a very low percentage. It's going up over time, you know, and you have people that identify as they're flexible or they're, you know, not non-exclusively heterosexual or something like that. But the number of people that identify as exclusively same-sex attracted is exceedingly low. We also find that there's a lot of things that overlap with that. Drug abuse, perversion, pedophilia. It's like half of all the pedophiles are gay men. They're like 3% of the population. Yes. They're half of all the pedophiles. And then you look at things like monkeypox. How did monkeypox come to America? It's because they all went on an island. They were all having sex with everybody else. It was a giant orgy. And then they all came back to America and had sex with everybody here. And then they gave everybody monkeypox. This is how the AIDS crisis started. And nobody wants to talk about it, but it is the ugly reality. Gay men know about it. What's that?
Is that facts? Is that factual information?
Those are 100% facts.
Can you give us a source?
Wait, don't straight people spread diseases too?
Okay.
Not as much as the AIDS phenomenon was a gay phenomenon in the 80s
Wait,
and 90s.
I don't understand the 3%. I want to know your story.
And if I could just finish, I promise I'll wrap it up and then he can respond.
Before you guys continue, we'll go one at a time. Nick, if you could finish your opening statement.
So the dirty secret that nobody wants to talk about is that homosexuals, there's a huge overlap with perversion and other dysfunctional behaviors. I'm sure there are homosexuals out there, maybe, that their only sin is sodomy. Their only sin is sodomy and something like that. And maybe every other way, they're fine. And I think that's very rare. But overall, the gay community has a lot of those problems. And I think the question fundamentally is, what is best for the child? You know, people say, well, everyone has a right to have kids. And something consistent in the debate is this, you know, we have rights. We have to think about what we're actually doing here. We have to think about where the rights of other people are. You know, do children have a right to grow up in a home with a moral fabric, you know, where it's a man and a woman in a marriage, as opposed to a single person, gay people, you know, other kinds of issues going on in the home. I actually do think in some cases, children not being adopted is better. And obviously we can think of examples of where that would not be the case. And I think that also applies to homosexuals too.
Okay, let's respond one at a time. Do you have anything, Isaac?
Yeah, I think the main point of this debate is kind of there can't really be an agreement or a conclusion reached because we have a fundamental disagreement over what's moral. I think you see homosexuality as a sin. You call it sodomy. So from your perspective, people who are immoral should not raise kids. And in that sense, I agree that people who are immoral should not raise kids. However, I do not view homosexuality as immoral, as do many other people on this panel. So that's pretty much how it is. I don't think we will be able to reach a consensus on this, to be honest.
Do you have anything else? Burnout, Heaven, Cheyenne, anything?
I just want to know, what basis do you base homosexuality in relation to alcoholism and pedophilic nature? Because those are very different things. Like, those are hugely different things, and that is a
in fact, homosexuality is much worse.
Heavy statement to make in a comparison. To call someone who is a drunk and a danger to children the same as someone who just likes the same sex. That's a bit insane to me.
Well, the argument went like this. People said that everyone who wants a kid should be able to adopt a kid. And I said, well, obviously that's not true, because we wouldn't, if an alcoholic wanted a kid, we wouldn't send an adopted child to them to raise them, because we see there's obvious problems. What's that?
We didn't say that. We said specifically homo. We did not say that anybody should be able to adopt.
We never say anybody.
Well, your argument was, you can roll it back, but the argument was people want to be parents, they should be able to be parents. And I think you agree that some people, that's not, even if they want to be parents, that's not enough, because there's certain qualifications. We have to consider whether they'd be good parents.
Would you not let people in a rural community adopt children then? Because they have high, if you're looking at averages, they have high rates of alcoholism and drugs. Would you not have people in middle America, rural communities that all are dealing with this opiate crisis? Would you not let any of them adopt children? No. And again, just because when you said earlier, oh, it's rare, it's only 3%. Like, yeah, maybe 3% of the population is born with 4 fingers instead of 5. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be parents, just because it's not as common. So I don't understand, just because you're saying that. And again, there is actually no evidence that children...
See, this is what these people always do. She just compared something that you cannot change. She just compared, well, I was born with 4 fingers instead of 5. Yeah, you were just born with it. You can't do anything about it. On the other side, you choose to do homosexual acts, okay? You choose to get drunk. It's not the same.
Grow up in same-sex households fare off any worse, whereas there is evidence that children growing up in poor rural communities fare off worse. So with your argument, would you not let those people adopt children?
Again, the argument isn't about averages. The argument isn't whether someone is statistically likely to be one thing or the other. What I said is,
poor rural
okay, can I finish my reply?
Yeah.
So as I'm not sure, it's Isaac. I think Isaac said a moment ago, we're not really going to come to an agreement, because if you think that being gay is not immoral, and I think it follows, if you don't think it's immoral, you probably would say that gays are just people that have a higher risk factor, for example, of those things, just like other people, just like people in Appalachia or something, and therefore you wouldn't categorically exclude them. What I'm saying, though, and I'm making this argument by painting a picture, is that homosexuality is immoral, just like being an alcoholic, just like being one of those other things. And it's an immoral behavior. I think in the same way that someone that abuses alcohol shouldn't have kids, someone that abuses themselves in a sexual way shouldn't be having kids. The picture I'm painting for people who might be skeptical is just to kind of introduce it. When I'm saying they shouldn't have kids, I'm not saying, oh, well, they shouldn't have kids because I'm prejudiced or a bigot. I'm saying it's wrong, and it's a good heuristic that it's wrong, because it's being misrepresented in the media and in society as something like you have men and women. There's half men, half women, and men and women are basically, they all are after the same things. You got black people, white people. White people, black people are, born a certain way, blah, blah, blah. What I'm saying is about homosexuals being 3% of the population, it is anomalous. It's non-normative. And so there's something about that where I feel like people don't really recognize it's such a tiny minority. And then you start to think, well, are people born gay and straight like people are born white and black, or men and women? Or are people born a certain way, and maybe they're born with a certain inclination, and then maybe it's environmental? In some cases, it's induced by assault or trauma, or it's induced by certain environmental factors in the home, like an overbearing mother. And then you start to create a profile that homosexuality is really a pattern of behavior more than an identity. And that's why it tends to flow into heavy promiscuity, drug use, perversion, all these things, because it isn't just like a preference that is kind of arbitrary. It's a pattern of behavior that results from kind of a very specific combination of factors. And so that's the picture that I'm trying to paint. But if you believe, go ahead.
Couldn't you say the same thing about like people with your worldview? That's a very fringe, small minority. Oh, maybe your mother was this way or that way, and that's why you believe X thing you believe. Your worldview and your fringe group of the internet is a very, very small minority. I would never say that's the reason you guys shouldn't be able to adopt kids. And again, if you're just going to say homosexuality is immoral, I don't like it, that's why, fine. But what you're saying is, oh, they have overlaps with drug use and this and that. When, again, those poor rural communities, they have way bigger overlaps. And we have actual statistical data that children that grow up in those communities end up faring worse, whereas children growing up with same-sex couples do not. So if you just want to say, I don't like homosexuality because it's gross, fine. But I don't know where these other arguments are coming from, because you're not being consistent with them.
Do you know any gay people?
No, I don't think I do.
Do you
So I
think
think
gay
you're
people are
speaking out
gay?
of
So how do
you're
you know
speaking
so
from
much
this from a
about
perspective of someone that doesn't
homosexuality?
know the LGBTQ community. You're just speaking about your own experience by maybe media, maybe your
Yeah, you're
own,
just
you know,
regurgitating
closed-minded view.
information.
Yeah,
Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt,
I
you're
baby.
not a
think
good
that if
representative to speak about it.
you're trying to make the case that homosexuals are not promiscuous, that they don't abuse drugs, that they don't like to party, that there's not immense perversion, I think you don't know what you're talking about on that case. I mean, it's true. Maybe I don't have credibility on the subject because I don't know them and that
Person
lifestyle
you just
intimately,
gave,
but I
can I
think
speak?
you'd be mistaken if you're arguing that.
Can I
And
speak
people
real
can
quick?
decide for themselves. Yeah, go
The
ahead.
Go ahead, Bernal.
description of the character you just gave also sounds like your average frat boy. So where's the difference in that, baby? Like, make it consistent.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there is a lot of that with frat boys, but I also think that the numbers are just extraordinary. I mean, for example, there's studies that have been done about homosexuality. I'm thinking of one that was done in San Francisco. It said that 95% of them are non-monogamous and promiscuous. And the numbers about their lifetime sexual partners, it's huge. It's in like the hundreds. It's just like a totally different category than heterosexual people. And I think that's kind of the point I'm getting at. I am making the case that it's immoral. And I'm trying to paint a picture for you where it's not like we're kind of starting in the middle of the story, where it's like you got straight people, you got gay people. Is it fair to discriminate? And I'm saying, well, we can't really start in the middle of the story. We kind of have to go back. And it's like, well, where are the gay people really coming from? Is it just like a roll of the dice? And just like everything else, one person's one way and one person is another? Or is homosexuality a non-normative behavior? It's a deviant behavior. It's a form of acting out or indulgence or a defect like other things. A predisposition to alcoholism, a predisposition to other things. I think there's a good case to be made based on the fact that it's such a small percentage, and they are given to these extreme and I think antisocial behaviors.
Isaac,
And
go ahead.
People have
that's
the
just
ability to choose their sexuality. Why would they? What benefit would they have by being gay?
I agree.
Society condemns them. Society does not see them as equal to straight. Like, in order for somebody to become a minority without any benefit, it would have to be like crazy. But you might see gay people as crazy. I don't know. That seems like something you believe.
I agree with you. I don't think it's a choice. It's just like I think a lot of things aren't a choice. I think that, there are people that are born as sociopaths. There are people that are born with the predisposition of violence or alcohol. People are unfortunately born, they're kind of loaded up with a lot of things. And how much of that is genetic and environmental? I think it's a difficult line to draw. And I'm willing to say, for the sake of argument, I think very clearly there are some people with a predisposition. I think for a lot of people, it's very environmental. Ultimately, though, no one makes a conscious decision. I agree with that. The question is, though, doesn't make it any less moral. Some people are born, pardon the comparison, but some people are born with a predisposition for violence. And would you say, hey, well, some people are black, some people are white, some people are women, some are men, some people like to kill people and some people don't, and they're equally valid. Like, no, you'd say, well, one is immoral, maybe they can't help it, but it should probably be regulated by society. I think the same is true with homosexuality. I think the same is true with hypersexuality in heterosexuals. I think a lot of that should be regulated.
Would you say then that black people shouldn't be able to adopt kids because they're technically more likely to be predispositioned towards violence because they commit more of it, if that's what you believe? Or would you, like, when you say, okay, alcoholics shouldn't be able to adopt kids, would you actually see that the person that wants to adopt a child is an alcoholic, or would you exclude them because they come from a region like poor rural America where a lot of them are alcoholics? Because for some reason with gay people, you're like automatically, because there's this overlap between or they have higher rates of drug use than whatever other demographic you're comparing them to, that we're not now going to look at them individually and say, are you an alcoholic? Are you a drug addict? But I have a feeling that when it comes to other groups, you would actually want them to show, okay, this person shouldn't be a parent because they are using drugs, not because they come from an area or that they're white, or whatever that makes them more likely to do so.
Yeah, again, I think you're kind of getting hung up on, like, I'm not saying it's a statistical risk factor. I'm not saying homosexuals are more likely to do X, Y, and Z, although they are, and therefore they shouldn't be able to adopt. I'm saying homosexuality is wrong. I said, and we know it's wrong because it really is a pattern of behavior. People that exclusively engage in homosexual sex, that's an act, it's a lifestyle, it is a way of living. Just like some people go and drink every day, some people, some men have sex with men and some women have sex with women. And I'm saying that categorically, those people should not have kids, just like categorically alcoholics shouldn't have kids, just like categorically drug abusers, I should say, shouldn't be able to adopt kids. No, Black people, by virtue of existing, don't necessarily have a predisposition to violence, but Black people that are engaged in gangbanging, because I worked at UPS one time. Luck of the draw. I was the guy that was training me was Black, and there was another Black guy alongside me, and they're like, you gangbang? Yeah, gang. They're from Gary, Indiana. They're from the South Side. Luck of the draw, I guess. Like that lifestyle shouldn't be able to adopt. Same thing with homosexuals. And so,
if there was data that showed that, or if you believed, even though because there is, that showed that these children don't fare off any worse with same-sex couples that engage in whatever lifestyle you're talking about, does that matter to you? Or is it just, you just don't like it, it's wrong, even though it doesn't seem to have any negative impact on children?
No, because I think that, and this is a point I think is interesting. You're always pushing the data, and, it's a very strong argument when you come with data. I don't think that we get all our knowledge empirically meaning scientifically. We set up a hypothesis, we collect data, we measure it. I think we also get knowledge rationally. I think we're also able to, you could call it common sense, you could call it logic. I think we also get information other ways. That's how we get philosophy. That's how we get the idea that, it's probably wrong to sodomize because the natural end of sex is reproduction. That's something that you can't determine that through a study or scientifically. You determine that rationally. And so I think that, data can be manipulated. You could play with the numbers. I'm really uninterested in the data. I think it's immoral. I think people that grow up in a household being taught sex can be had between two consenting people or many consenting people or men and men, I think it's wrong. I don't think people should be brought up in that kind of environment.
I completely agree with Nick. Guys, let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Leave a like if you want to. Christ is King, and God bless.